Good evening. Welcome everyone to our Cedar Little Rock Board of Directors agenda meeting for October, to set the agenda for October 6th, with today being September 30th. We'll first start with Chief Helton, who will give part of um, the ordinance that we passed to amend the curfew laws, uh, particularly one in the entertainment district areas. He's here, part of that ordinance that also expired, I believe, on September the 2nd. He's here, part of it states that we'll kind of give a recap of the impact of that ordinance, and he'll give the next steps.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the board, Vice Mayor, City Manager. Appreciate the opportunity to come and kind of give an update on the curfew extension that was granted in, I guess, early part of August. I don't have the ordinance number with me at this time, but I know you're all familiar with it. So once we put the ordinance in place, obviously out of concern for some of the large number of gatherings of our young people into the entertainment district, during that time that caused a lot of concern with the lack of supervision from parents and just being dropped off. So we asked that the curfew be extended to 10 p.m. instead of the normal midnight. Once that was put in place, I think it was very effective because we had no incidents after that, even no curfew violations. So I think the desired effect was there. We also had a lot of great partnerships from various organizations from the community that could help come down and were there present in the district during that time to ensure that our young people were educated and also made aware of the time. So that expired right after Labor Day. And going forward, I think we're fine during the winter months, but one thing that I would definitely like to put in place is that when we do get into the summer months, that be reevaluated again to allow, just for the River Market, but all of our entertainment districts to keep those situations under control for our youth gatherings and things like that for those that are under the age of 21 in those entertainment districts after the 10 p.m. hour. So it's kind of with that, like I said, it's nothing exciting news or just overjoyed, but we really had no issues after we put those curfews in place. And I think it had the desired effect, what we wanted to do. We had no really major issues after that with our young people. So I think we accomplished what we need to accomplish, and hopefully going forward, we can continue to look at those options in the future.
Sure, and I think we can go ahead and schedule with the city attorney as we get closer to the summer and just make that a routine.
Yes, sir. I think that'd be a great idea.
Director Campiris?
I hate to be the bad guy in the room, but why not continue it? I mean, if it works, it's not hurting anybody. It's keeping the kids out of the entertainment district. And that's what we ought to be doing. And why not continuing? I mean, is it a manpower issue? Is it because things worked and we're not doing it? It's going to crop up again, I think it's no offense, but I think it's a bad idea not doing it.
You know, a wonderful question, and I appreciate your comments. Generally, during the winter months and the colder months, we don't see a lot of gatherings because obviously cold temperatures. It gets cold at night. In the fall season, early spring, there's a lot of events. Schools put on. Most of our kids are in schools. College kids are in college. So, and you really don't have to worry about that demographic, so to speak. But I think when it's colder, we tend to see things slow down a little bit in the colder months. It's when it gets warmer that you see more people out moving around. More people generally are out in our parks and in our entertainment district sees an influx of people during that time, and a lot more outdoor activity. So I think that's where it becomes an issue for us, is straining our manpower when we get into the warmer months, where historically we always see a spike in our crime activity during the warmer months. So in the fall months, winter months, it's usually a little bit slower for us.
Well, yes, sir, but why not do it the rest of the time? I mean, is it a manpower thing? Is it, Tom, is something we're doing infringing on people's rights? I mean, I don't, if it doesn't cost manpower and it doesn't hurt your force and where you deploy people, and we're keeping kids out of these areas during this period of time when they shouldn't be, in my opinion, then why not do it? I think it's...
It does put a strain on our resources to a degree because we do have other officers assigned to that area. For example, during summertime, all of our SROs, we reallocated them to the district. Obviously, with school in session now, they're all assigned out to their schools. So that becomes an issue when you're out of season, so to speak, on that. we have available resources. In the warmer months, or excuse me, in the fall season, we have a lot of events here in the next couple of weeks. We have a significant number of personnel that are going to be assigned to the fair, and those things that come up. So it is logistically moving your personnel around to accommodate those. It does, other things pop up that require more bodies, and I have to look out for our personnel that we don't strap them down too much with other obligations and then pulling resources from other assignments. That does tax you when we have 75 vacancies right now and another 30 out for military or whatever other reason. So there is a strain that it could put on us. And like, again, I reiterate, during the fall and winter months, we don't usually see that. Things usually get slower because the cold tends to drive more people in. And I understand your argument. I mean, there's no harm leaving it now, but again, for monitoring it, making sure we're doing it, I'm not going to have the resources there to monitor it effectively like you would want us to.
Well, but I mean, if the judge's citations, we had no citations when we did it, and then you had 30 or 40 before that, right?
I don't remember the number we had, but we did have some before that. Yes, sir.
I mean, and so it seems to me that there's a learning curve for the people that if you have it, then you could have the chance of getting a citation and getting in trouble. That it's negative feedback.
I'm not really always concerned with negative. You're going to have yay or nays and stuff like that.
I'm not about publicity. I'm talking about it. It tells the young people that if they don't do it, they're going to get in trouble. And if there's no curfew and the chances of having a citation go away, then it's like I'm free again. I'm out. Yeah.
I think that's, what he's alluding to. So, I mean, it could potentially, but I think in the winter, like I said, the winter months, there's usually more going on indoors that tends to attract more people because not a lot of people just go hang out, in 30-degree weather, just hanging out for 2 or 3 hours on a park. It doesn't really happen a whole lot because most people will generally find their way inside when it's colder. And that's historically been that way in all my time here in the city working. So, things do slow down for us as far as people hanging out in the colder months.
Well, and the other thing, the byproduct of it was all the people that live downtown said it was appreciably quieter.
Oh, well, no doubt, 100%.
And so what they're going to come back and say to Virgil is, now that this isn't there, now I've got cars. When you're in the car, got a heater, and I'm doing the same thing downtown. What is Virgil going to say to the people that call him and say that?
He'll call me or text me in the early morning hours.
I know, but I'm trying to be proactive on something that works, that I, for the first time, have people say, I like it downtown. I don't see a bunch of kids. The cars aren't downtown. All these things are positives, and we're going to just put a big sign up and say, see you in the spring.
Yeah, and Director Pierce, I appreciate your comments 100%. But as long as I've been here, even when I was a River Market commander, we always had issues during the warmer summertime months. I mean, that was usually the crux of our issue.
And I don't argue that at all. I'm just saying it's something that's making people, whether if you can give me if you can make me feel better about manpower or some reason that we're doing this, but I don't hear from the same people that I hear from before the curfew saying, why are you allowing all this stuff? Why are the kids all down here? Why are the cars all down here? Why are all these things down here? Virgil, you hear the same thing.
I can tell you, since the curfew ended on September the 2nd, I haven't had no issues down there with the kids. The River Market officers have not complained about the large gatherings. I think Lieutenant Miller, who is the night shift commander down there, has done a great job. He and I met with some River Market residents last week. I think it was last week or the week before. Had a good conversation there. And I think we're putting in steps to monitor that. We haven't had issues since the curfew has expired. So, and I think that historically is always has been that way. Now, just like anything else, if we see it pop up, then we will utilize resources, pivot, and move things around to address it. But I think historically over time, I have to base my decisions on what I know, what the data tells me, what we normally see, and I think that's where we're at this point. So I hate to tie down additional resources because each one of you sitting on the board are very nice about telling me about other issues that pop up around the city that come up that require us to pivot and move things around. And like I said, I have to allocate a lot of resources coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So it does become strenuous trying to address all the issues that pop up from time to time. So I have to be very conscious of moving those personnel around because it has a ripple effect across the department and all over everything else when you're doing this. So, and I don't want to go to the overtime bucket unless I really have to. Because I try to be conscious of taxpayers' dollars and things like that, and also the wellness of my personnel to make sure I'm not wearing them out as well. So, but I do understand your concerns. It could be rain in place, but again, I got other resources I can divvy elsewhere at that time right now during the winter months because we all know it's going to get cold. We're going to have people sheltering up in businesses and parking lots and things of that nature that we're going to get numerous calls about that I will have to, no doubt, have to get out and address and try to, help assist with those issues and things of that nature. So it becomes of how many things do you really want to put on my plate at one time?
Well, I'll leave this on the side of your plate, and if I start getting problems, then I'll have Virgil call you.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed. I mean, if it becomes a problem, I'm not opposed to coming back before this board and asking for the same consideration as we did last time.
Vice Mayor Wyatt?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for the report.
Yes, ma'am.
When we built these entertainment districts, the ordinances for them, I thought we had a 9 p.m. curfew for entertainment districts.
I would defer to the city attorney on that. I don't ever recall when I was the River Market commander there being a 9 p.m. curfew during that time. But because me, it was always for anybody under the age of 18. It was 12 p.m. on Friday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday was always our juvenile curfew. And I don't, Mr. Carpenter, I would just defer to him at that point if there's anything to that nature.
I'd like to research that because I remember when we were working on the ordinance, I was downtown in the River Market and there were kids everywhere. And that's several years ago when we set that up. And so I remember us setting a curfew for 9 p.m. So apparently we've not paid any, if it is in place, which I think it is, if it is in place, we've never paid attention to the 9 p.m. in any of the event centers.
Yeah, the only other thing I could ever recall with our juveniles other than the summertime, when we had movies in the parks, that was always an issue that would develop with a lot of kids showing up and just being dropped off but not going into the amphitheater for the movies in the park. It was a large gathering. They would, outside the event, around the pavilions and out front of a lot of the businesses on the strip that created some issues. And we had issues with fights and things of that nature there because simply it was just people being dropped off and not going and participating in the city's movies in the park events. So that was an issue back in that time, but that was back 2011, 2012 when I was down there too. So
yeah, well, I agree with Dean. The 10 p.m. curfew worked, and it gave a lot of people some peace. And so I think it was a good deal to do. But I want us to research the 9 p.m. because I do believe the original ordinance that was set up said 9 p.m.
Yeah. Director Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. And it seems like I've been called out. Of course, I live in Ward 1 and I live in an entertainment district. So I certainly have some thoughts about this. And of course, when I was asked about it, to come and meet with some residents on September 17th, asked the chief to go with me, and it was well received. And so when we talked to these residents and talked to neighborhood groups, they were very pleased with what we did. But we also said we were going to remove that, when school started back. We did what we said we were going to do. And what I also want to assure the residents in these neighborhoods is that if there's some other action come up, we won't hesitate to take action again. And so, Chief, I want you to be able to use your resources the way that you historically have been able to use your resources. And so, the cycle that you've described is something you're familiar with. And so I don't have a problem with what we did and removing the curfew. Because if something pops up again, I have assured the residents that the mayor and this city board will take action again. And so I don't have a problem with that. So thank you for that. I also want to know, you did mention some other groups came in and helped. Tell me specifically about some of those groups or what people did? How did they interact with you?
I don't know all the names of the groups specifically, but I do know there were some faith-based organizations. Some of our local community activist groups, they were down there monitoring and assisting juveniles. And when that 10 p.m. curfew would hit, they would make sure they were moving out of the district, make sure that we weren't just, from the police standpoint, we weren't going crazy and just snatching people up. I think that helped on that, having various groups to help educate some of our young people, and it all went off without no issues. And I appreciate those groups for coming down there and taking the effort to make sure that young people were educated. So, and there was no negative interactions that I've been made aware of. So I think, and that's what it takes. It takes everybody from the community getting involved. And like I said, I appreciate those organizations and groups that came down there. And I'm sure some of them were there monitoring us to see if we were doing right. And I appreciate that. But I think overall it worked out well. Nobody got cited during the curfew, and it all seemed to go very well, and we had no issues after that.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that. And I think, the interaction that we have with those groups is something that we can build on, and we can continue to work with the groups like that. I can tell you when we initiated curfew, I was in a 45-minute phone call with someone who was definitely opposed to what we were doing, and I just finally told the person I'm going to have to agree to disagree with them, that we had an incident take place, we took action, and that we would come back and take a look at it. I have not heard back from that person. So obviously, what you did and what the curfew did and all the community groups working together, and you said there was no incidents, it worked out perfectly. I can't think of a better scenario that happened. And so the groups I talked to, I have assured them that if an incident pops up again, we will respond to it. We did what we said we were going to do. We took strong action against the will of some people and some groups. And I'm sure you are right, Chief. I'm sure people were down there looking at the police. But there were no incidents. It worked out fine. I don't have a problem with it. Again, I live in an entertainment district. And again, we'll probably visit about, the entertainment district I live in. But anyway, thank you for what you did. And again, I don't have a problem with what we did. I think it worked out perfectly. The groups I've talked to, Director Compuris, didn't have a problem with what we did. We did what we said we were going to do. And that's what I told these groups. I said, we're going to lift this once school starts. That's what we said we were going to do. That's what the mayor said we were going to do. I completely supported it. I completely support your historical knowledge on cycles of when you need your forces and where they need to be deployed. I rely on your judgment for that. So I think this thing worked out fine. And if something pops off again, I'm sure we will respond to it.
Yes, sir.
So thank you.
Totally agree, Director Miller. Thank you, Chief. I know you got to get to an event.
Yep. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all.
All right, we'll now have a presentation from JTS as they're coming up. I think members of the board, just to kind of re-jog everyone's memory, we've talked about for quite some time a desire to move from fully insured to a self-funded, self-insured model. It does create some costs initially depending on our pool. And so JTS is going to walk us through this because the intent for the last 2 to 3 years we've been trying to get here. We're finally going to do it. We do suspect whether we do fully insured and or self-insured, we're going to see an increase in costs, and that's going to weigh a lot on our budget if we have to have any right sizing in the budget from a 24 to a 25. I think everyone's aware. If you're not aware, from the previous budget, we have to account for police and fire raises that we've agreed to for 5%, and so that cuts into a lot of the extra money into any budget, and whether or not you have to cut a budget. And then health insurance, which plays 25% of our budget, plays a role into that as well. And so, as you all clearly have already had a budget meeting a few weeks ago, right now we're right sizing, getting more of the numbers, and which this plays a vital role into our budgeting process and what we present to you, and whether or not we have to make some cuts from the 24 budget or the 25 budget for the 26 budget. This plays a role, so please listen pretty hard to this conversation because we want to make certain that Chief Hubbard and I are going the right direction as we prepare the budget. Because if you do not want to go to self-funded, that's fine. We can stay fully insured, and that was a decision we made last year because the cost benefit didn't make sense to move to self-insured, self-funded last year, and so we stayed, and because the costs with the insurance carrier remained flat basically, which was a good deal, and they remain flat this year. We may push it down again because of the things, but want to re-jog your memory on fully insured versus self-funded as we get ready from the budgeting team standpoint makes our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Board, thank you for making time for us tonight. In the interest of time, we'll go ahead and flip to page 4 in the booklet. The first couple of pages aren't really relevant
I
to
tried to
conversation.
talk through those.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So when you look at fully insured versus self-funded, basically when you purchase a fully insured health plan, it is bundled. So if you want to think of it on a entry-level grocery standpoint, you're buying a frozen lasagna. It's already made. That's going to be a little more expensive than if you buy the ingredients to the lasagna and make it yourself, right? So when you move over to the self-funded model, we can really unbundle that and go to different carriers for different things and try to keep those costs on each portion down as low as possible. Everything you see on the self-funded side is a part of the fully insured side, including the reinsurance. Fully insured carriers actually purchase reinsurance on those plans. So whichever carrier you might think of in your head, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, QualChoice, doesn't really matter. They all purchase reinsurance on that. It's just protecting the carrier as opposed to the city at that point. The other thing that comes in is in the prescription claims. There are rebates that come from all of our pharmaceuticals, specifically specialty drugs and brand name drugs. If you see the advertisement on television, that's a very expensive drug, and there are very big rebates that come with that drug. When we're fully insured, the carrier realizes all of those rebates. The city doesn't participate in any of those rebates. When we're self-funded, those rebates then come back to the city and help offset our cost. So that is probably the main way we can really drive savings there. So traditionally, what we're looking for when we're ready to make that move to self-funded is to see numbers where the worst possible scenario is at or below what premiums would be for the year. And last year we thought we were there, but to Mayor Scott's point, the carrier kind of came in and said, well, we can sharpen our pencil a little bit, and came in with a flat renewal. This year they're telling us a flat renewal is not very likely. They're thinking a little over 10% is where we're going to land on that. So from what we're seeing from the stop-loss carriers right now, I firmly believe that we're going to end up at or below that magic number, where the worst-case scenario, if we have the worst 2026 possible and our reinsurance does kick in, we wouldn't spend any more than if we were fully insured. So that's worst-case scenario. The final thing that really makes self-funded worth your while is, what if we have a good year? What if we have low claims in 2026? Well, if we're fully insured, the carrier keeps all that money. We've paid it in premium. Whoever our carrier is just keeps that money, and that kind of goes to their profit margin. If you were self-funded, everything you don't pay out in claims, the city never spends that money. So it stays in the bank and can be reallocated by this board or put in a reserve for the next year in case we have a rough year in 2027. So I've thrown a lot at you guys, but before we slip to the next page, and Nancy has a few things to tell you guys about, I'll pause in case there's any questions.
No, keep going. So
Okay.
finish the presentation.
Very good. Go ahead, Nancy.
All right. Next piece we have is really just talking a little bit about why there are advantages for self-funded. And a lot of this is, it gives us flexibility. You know, one of the things you're talking about is negotiations with fire and police. You know, this gives us some flexibility. I know we've looked at some different things as it pertains to cancer screenings and things like that that are hugely important. It gives us a lot of flexibility to design a plan specifically around the needs of the city or in different negotiations that might be going on. So that's one of the huge advantages. It also gives us the data to see what's happening. Right now with fully insured, we don't get a lot of data. We know your claims, we know premiums, and we know your high-cost claimants. That's the only thing that we know. We will have full data, And we have AI tools that we will put the data into that we'll be able to look at, if we make this plan change, what is that going to mean? How many people are on a high-cost drug? What are those things that we can do that could help us drive cost, but also just improve the experience of your employees? How do we have a little more high touch, a little more concierge service with those employees? And again, it just goes back into cost controls. There might be some direct contracting we will look at in doing. So overall, all of this is going to lead to the ability for us, hopefully over time, maybe we're not going to reduce premiums, but Frank, I do think that we'll be able to really control it, because right now we're just getting whatever our renewal is our renewal. And our whole goal is that we can really drive those controls and really manage what those expenses are going to be for your employees. There are some advantages, so some taxes you don't have to pay. There's some mandates, that state mandates on fully insured, that we might not want to do as self-funded. But it allows us to really build a package for you. And again, as Charles and I are going to talk about in a minute, even more, again, pharmaceutical rebates and things like that. But the great thing will be on the data transparency tools, we'll be able to come in here, we could work with our HR team, pull up anything that's going on with the city, with their members, and see how do we control levers that can help us maintain those costs. Do we have a lot of diabetics? What are things we can do more for that diabetic population? So we're really excited about being able to bring that so that we can be way more intentional with the health plan.
Moving along to slide 6, this just shows some different ways that we can save money on a self-funded plan. Some of them may make sense for City of Little Rock, some may not. But 3 things I would like to focus on. Alternative RX outsourcing. So there are a lot of different ways to make sure we're getting the best deal on our pharmaceuticals. And that changes year to year, whether that be looking at Canadian sourcing, whether that be 340B drug pricing. There are always ways that the game is kind of changing, unfortunately. If I knew the answers to how to fix that completely, I'd be in Washington, probably not right here. But what we can do is stay on top of that and just make sure that we are making sure that City of Little Rock gets the best deal each year that's available out there. And once we have the line of sight that Nancy's talking about, when we're self-funded, we'll be able to see exactly what that pricing is. When you're fully insured, you just pay the price tag that you're billed, and that is what it is. The next 2 things I want to touch on really go hand in hand, and that's the enhanced wellness strategy and the clinic. So the City of Little Rock has committed to having its own internal clinic, and as a large enough employer to do that, that can really help your wellness plan make a difference. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do there is drive more and more people to get the health care they need at an early stage, as opposed to waiting until they have a major health concern to get it later. That also goes to being able to track who's actually taking the meds that they need to be taking. If someone stops taking it's a very inexpensive pill, a blood pressure pill. They stop taking that, the TPA can track that, do some outreach, and remind that person, hey, you haven't filled your blood pressure meds in 3 or 4 months. We probably need to go ahead and do that. When the city has its own health clinic, they'll be able to actually walk out of that clinic with their meds in their hand, instead of having to stop, make an appointment, take some time off work, go across town. Takes up kind of half of their day. When we have that ease of the city's internal clinic, we see a lot of that happen where people get back on their medications, and they're less likely to use the ER sometimes as well, which I promise you is the most expensive way to receive care. If someone has chest pains or is at risk of life or limb, yes, we want them in the emergency room. But if it's something a little more minor, we think that having the city's own clinic will make them seek care there, which is entirely less expensive than going directly to the ER, which drives up our premiums each year.
Yeah, one other thing too is we also have a Medicare specialist that'll be working with us. So as your employees turn age 65, we're gonna be working with them to say, is it best if you stay on the plan? What does this look like? How do we help them transition? So many people get a gazillion postcards in the mail, as you know. And so the whole goal is you really hand walk these people through that whole situation, what makes the most sense. As Charles talks about the clinic, and again, on that next slide, it talks about some of it, but the on-site clinic savings, so that $250,000 to $500,000, what I did is Jenny Bradford and I sat and we looked at the data that we got back from the carrier this year. Last year, the City of Little Rock had $1 million in ER spend for people going to an emergency room. A clinic, the ROI on a clinic says that 29%, you'll get 29% savings on people not going to the ER. So that's a $290,000 savings right there with having a clinic. One of the other pieces is it says that you will save 10% on being admitted into the hospital. That's another one, because people will be going to the clinic, they won't go and get checked into into the hospital. You had $4 million worth of in-hospital claims last year. Again, that goes back to 10% saving is another $400,000. So these clinic savings that we are coming up with is not just numbers out of the air, but taking your actual data and going with the consistency of what the clinic provider is showing to give you real numbers on what that savings would be. On your rebate savings, so as we look at our high claimants, we know that there is one employee who is probably our highest claimant, that the city is spending $130,000 a month on some medication. We'll be able to work with that person then to try to come up with some specialty savings. Again, going back to either that's through the rebates coming back to the city or finding some other ways to help save them money through international sourcing or 340B. And then just, again, being way more intentional to help save the city money, because that one employee is 8% of the total claims. So we're right at $1.5 million of claims. So it'll allow us, because right now, if we continue that, then every year we're going to have another 10% increase and another 10% increase and another 10% increase. But our goal is, again, to manage that, to be more, we are working to have again, with our carriers, the rebates all going back to the city. That right now is ranging somewhere right at around $2 million, maybe a little more of rebates back to the city. Again, as Charles said, how we've looked at it is we kind of know what the renewal will be this year at a little bit over a 10% increase. We believe if we're at a year where we're at 100% and not at 125, we'll actually save the city money. But even if we were at 125%, we're still going to be $1 million less in premium on self-funded than we would be if we went fully insured. And so those, again, going back to the reasons why, especially drug programs, like Charles said, I know there's a lot out there. There's been a lot brought even to the city by different carriers of international sourcing, brand sourcing, the 340B. Those are all that we will look at. Once we go self-funded, then we'll be able to get that data. And that will be first quarter, second quarter of the year that we'll really start diving into all those pharmacy savings and figure out which program makes the most sense, and then bring that back to this board to show you how does that look. Because right now, I just know there's 3 or 4 people that are on some high-cost medications. I don't know who they are. I don't know what the drugs are. All we get is we know that the price that the city's been paying. And then the last is just, again, going back to, we feel like there's opportunities for us to work with local carriers. Maybe that's an imaging company or things like that we can get discounts on x-rays. Again, the clinic would be not only a medical clinic, but an ONOC clinic, and we'll be saving a lot of money by doing your drug screenings, your pre-authorizations for employment, all of that through the clinic. And again, a lot of the screenings that we want to do to be able to help save the city money.
And thank you so much. And again, members of the board, just want to set the stage. I see we got one question. The reality is, and many of you all know, sometimes we'll have a year that it's flat, and sometimes it'll be an X amount of percentage increase. If you've been following the news, the state, I believe, just received their health insurance increase 25%. We just don't have their surplus. But so we're looking at least 10% as a fully insured model. And be quite frank, we still may go and do this process, and it still may be 6 or 7 or 8 or 10%. It could be the same amount. However, what a fully insured self-funded model gives us the opportunity to do is to manage our costs better for the long run. Some years it's low, some years it's high, but you get a chance to really know what we're spending, how we're spending, versus the example of just getting your frozen meal versus we create our own meal. The nature of the economy, sometimes it'll be the same price, sometimes it'll be lower, but at least we know what we're spending, how we're spending, and that direct cost standpoint. So again, I want to share with the board, this presentation is what's your pleasure with the knowing, with the notice of it's going to increase. And so when we're talking about things in our budget meetings of money available, any money we have available as Nick is looking at the budget, let's say we have X amount of dollars available extra for this year. Well, it gets taken away as we give more raises to police and fire, which we all fully support. We want to do that. We're going to continue to do that. But then as health insurance rises, that takes away. Then ultimately, if it gets higher, then we got to start cutting the budget. So those are different things that plays a role in that process as we look into it. And so we get a chance to really delve in a little deeper. I think it's a positive to go to self-funded. We definitely, if the insurance folks come back and say, hey, we're gonna keep it flat and or reduce, we may keep it the same, but want to bring that to you all's attention as we get ready to prepare for the budget. Director Phillips, then Director Hines.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the presentation. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this. And Mayor, I had more than one question, but
You have the mic.
but I was gonna say that you answered a couple of them, so this will be quicker than I initially thought. One thing I want to be sure of that I understand, when you go self-insured versus fully funded, is that a year-by-year thing, or if we do that, they're saying, hey, we're gonna do this for 5 years? Or do we come back in 26 at this time and look at it and maybe go backwards? Like, what's the outlook long-term on whether we stay self-funded or fully insured?
Sure, thank you, Director Phillips. That's a great question. The short answer to that question is it is still year to year. So the board could make that decision either way. We do traditionally see self-funded groups stay self-funded for quite some time. It doesn't mean they always do, but traditionally they stay self-funded because it is more of a long-term strategy, so you can see that data. But again, the direct answer is you could shift from year to year.
And that's what I wanted. Thank you for that answer. So people I've talked to about this say usually it's like a 5-year where you can really get some data, because you may have the very good year and the very bad year, and,
Yes,
and 5 years is about the amount of time where you can really evaluate how this is working. Is that your thoughts, or is it shorter than that?
It's usually 3 to 5 years. It
Okay.
kind of depends on who you're talking to. The larger you are as an employer, usually the shorter amount of time you can really kind of figure out what's going on. And the city of Little Rock's a fairly large employer. So I would probably lean a little more towards 3 years, but the conservative wisdom might lean a little more towards 5.
And then on page 7, these total estimated savings, are those numbers in comparison to what we would pay if we were fully insured? Or are you saying if we go there, there's a potential $3.3 to $4 million that's gonna go back into the city coffers that we wouldn't spend?
Yeah,
You
so,
understand the distinction I'm making?
yes, so when we talk about, let's say example, the rebates. So the rebates right now, if you're fully insured, they keep all the rebates. We've even looked at the absolute worst case scenario for the city of Little Rock. If you were at 125 loss ratio with the rebates and things that the carriers are providing back to you, you will still be $1 million less than if you went fully insured. That's why we feel like this is the year that we should totally go self-funded, because even in the worst self-funded year, we're still cheaper than fully insured rates.
Okay, and I think you mentioned that, and I want to make sure I understood that correctly, that if we switch, you're telling us and the 210,000 people in the city of Little Rock that we go to this, if we go fully insured, the worst year is still gonna be better than the current year.
That's definitely what we're looking for, Director
Yes.
Phillips. Now, the negotiations aren't complete. That's why we're coming back next
Okay.
week. That's what Mayor Scott was talking
Right.
about. We're kind of hoping on the fully insured side, they'll
Yeah.
come down a little bit. And with September's claims ending today, the stop-loss carriers will get one more look at that. In my estimation, that gap will shrink a little bit. But even if we get to a point where those numbers are level, right? The worst-case scenario on self-funded is exactly what premium would be on fully insured. To me, it turns into a no-brainer to go self-funded, because that's just worst-case scenario. If we have a better year, then the city keeps anything that's a.
Again, I agree with going self-funded, but I want to know the reality. Sometimes we have team members that will have an issue that we need to fund that will, I remember one point we had one team member that was costing the city, and I'm not exaggerating, several millions of dollars. We happily paid it. We're going to continue to have to pay that type of stuff. And so the point I want to share is, as we see some of these cost reductions, many of that may be realized during the year. So just because we make the change now and we know we're going to manage our costs better because of this. That doesn't mean we're gonna get $1 million to stop us from cutting the budget right now, because we gotta think about today, real time.
That's what I'm getting
That's,
at.
I wanna be clear on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And then I thought I had one. Yeah, my last question, the clinic, I'm very supportive and I think it all makes sense. But assuming the carrier comes back and say, hey, it's not 10%, it's 3%, and we decide to stay fully insured, is the clinic still a part of fully insured, or is this just if we go self-funded?
It'll be, you could have a clinic even if you're a fully insured. It makes it much easier if it's self-funded because there'll be opportunities to save. We also have some carriers that are willing to put money into help offset the cost of the clinic, which is a huge advantage of going self-funded. So that's part of what we've negotiated as well, is that there's, as we work with the HR team, there are carriers that are gonna be saying, hey, we want you to have the clinic, and are putting monies to help offset those costs for the clinic in there as well.
Okay, I understand. And that's all I had. So I appreciate the diligence. I know there's more work to do, but I appreciate y'all keep coming back and keeping us updated. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
And then one other thing, also, the current carrier, we're able to go into a clinic soon because of the current carrier offer that, so I want to be clear there, they're more or less helping with the upfront costs. That does not mean that they will get it, but that was part of their deal, goes back to her credit, is that you can have a clinic with a fully insured model, and so that's what the current carrier has done, is given us the ability to start a clinic under a fully insured model, and so we get those startup costs funded. And so if they happen to be competitive, what they would do is just easier from the managed care standpoint. So, this, Director Hines.
Thank you. Just to clarify for everyone, MIMS is, they're in a self-insured format called a captive, and water reclamation is a self-funded. So both self-funded operations, just captives spread the risk over multiple companies within a certain group, and then water reclamation is self-funded. Baptist Health is self-funded. Those are just entities that do it, and there's been great savings for both MIMS and water reclamation. They're much smaller organizations, but those savings have generally been passed on to employees. At water reclamation, their employees are required to contribute some towards their health care. So I think last year, maybe the last 2 years, we gave them a health insurance holiday in December. So there's some advantages that we'll have as a board if we do have savings versus banking the reserves and being able to give back. It's a little different for us since we pay for our employees' health insurance. My question is more on the technical side. Whose provider network and fee structure are we going to use? Are we going to bid that out? Because, and then who is going to manage and process claims for us? And I will tell you the caveat, when I worked for Watkins Motor Lines some 25 years ago, we went to self-insured in the first year because we let our previous provider, we used their fee structure and network. We let them pay our claims, and we had a huge issue, and we took all of our claims audit and payment in-house because there's no benefit. When we're doing that, how do we protect ourselves to make sure that whoever we're doing our auditing of our healthcare payments and stuff, that they're actually got a little skin in the game? How are we going to handle that? And whose provider are we going to bid that? That's more of the technical question about how we also control costs.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Director Hines. So we have been working with the current provider, which is Cigna, as well as Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Arkansas, UMR, which is the self-funded wing of United Healthcare, as well as QualChoice. So looking at all four of those, and then, of course, they have to pay claims based on how the reinsurance is set up, right? So they would be both if you went with any of those four TPAs, they would also have their network on top of that. So if you select Cigna as your third-party administrator, you would have Cigna's network. But of course, they have to pay claims as the city sets up their plan, right, and as the stop-loss provider comes in and says, okay, this is what we accept to pay. So you don't want the city to set up a plan that pays things outside the contract with your reinsurance.
Yeah, I just know we had an issue with the TPA. We were paying claims they shouldn't be, and our claims utilization was high. No, that's fine. I appreciate it. I'm supportive of doing this. I think long time coming, and I know, only takes one bad year to even the score, and the insurance companies will do it. So I appreciate the presentation. I fully understand everything we're getting into. I think it'll be beneficial, especially where the PBMs and some of the rebates it's kind of the dirty little secret, as you've seen our state legislature take moves to break down that vertical integration between some of the larger PBMs owning pharmacies and basically putting it in one pocket to take it out of the other.
Yeah, that's why we probably will be coming back in the spring as we really look at all the different RX programs that are out there, the international sourcing. There's some that the state, y'all have seen that they brought, that the state's looking at, especially 340B, which is even using some of your local FQHCs to help save on those costs of money. So we will be actively then, but we have to go to self-funded to get the data so we know what we're even.
I think even the framework on, I just heard coming in today that there's new 100% tariffs on imported prescription drugs. So that may even change the.
Changes constantly.
And that's why having a local FQHC, which is a federally qualified health center, being able to have employees be able to use that 340B drug savings to be able to still find those savings, using the coupons, just doing all the different things out there that we can then bring those savings. Because right now, on your high-class claimants, City of Little Rock has 6 million of high-class claimants, 2 million is pharmacy, and 4 million of that is like hospital or doctor costs.
Is there any thought going forward in the future, not this year, of course, of also offering, I've seen it at my daughter's company, we went to a high deductible HSA, that's just what we're on. Is there any thought to offering an either or approach once we get on it to, say, our younger employees that want to do an HSA versus the standard HMO, PPO type provider network?
We do have a high deductible option right now. So there is one, but again, I think that goes back to then educating people more on it and getting more participants in on it.
Thanks.
Director Pearson, I think we got a question from our city attorney after Director Pierce.
Thank y'all. As you know, this is one of those things I've been pushing for a number of years. One of the things that was the downfall last time is that we were looking for one health organization to keep the costs down and having exclusively going to one health organization. How are you going to counteract that this time so that when this comes out, that one big insurance group or one big group in the city, the police, the fire, the so-and-so, say, I don't want to go to be excluded from my doctor or that sort of thing? Because one of the ways you keep costs down is you have qualified people to take care of them. So that's my first question to you.
It's a great question, Dr. Campuris. Thank you. So the first thing, if I could answer that in chunks, if it's okay.
It's a big question.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned specifically PD and fire not wanting to get their doctor pulled out of network to continue to be able to see the doctors that they've been seeing. So the way we would do that is we would use one of the major networks. I'll just pick on Cigna because they're our current carrier, okay? If we go with Cigna as our TPA and our network, then we could use the exact same network. The same doctors would be there in network for us. To the second portion of how we contain cost by utilizing our network, right? When you're self-funded, as we have discussed before, you can implement a narrow network, right, which has better outcomes, right? You get your facilities and your physicians with better outcomes that are also willing to sometimes take a lower price point too. It's not all about price. It's also about outcomes, as you well know, given what you do for a living. But the way I see that is we use this savings to then pass that on to the employee if they're willing to use that narrow network and just use those savings as a way to take some money off of their deductible or their coinsurance, to use the carrot, not the stick, to encourage them to utilize that narrow network.
Well, if you remember the last time we looked at this, and the mayor can remember this, that we tried to use that stick, the carrot, to say, we'll cut your premiums if you'll use this select group of people, and were met not with great enthusiasm.
No, Director Campuris is correct. I think the team members enjoy the current networks that they've seen right now, and so there's at the end of the day, when you do this, you still have the ability to manage other things. I think if going back to actually what Director Hines shared, the real cost savings are going to be in the PBM standpoint. When you're sick, you're sick. I mean, the question is where do you go to your doctor? And I would say our team members like the current network based on what I've heard from them right now. Whereas in our previous carrier, they didn't like that network as much. Granted, they'll go to wherever network we choose. However, we do want to listen to their concerns. But ultimately, in the self-funded model, we get a chance to have a greater stick, Director Computers with the PBMs, Director Hines as well, rather than, if it was up to folks right now, we probably would stick with our current carrier Cigna because of their network and try to get as much cost savings on the PBM. I say that with knowing that there has to be a RFP process. We're going to go based off cost, so make sure. But
I also think the clinic is big too, because you'll have people coming into the clinic, people that maybe wouldn't go to the doctor, or maybe they're waiting a long time and then they finally get super sick. The great thing we're going to also have at the clinic is we're not going to be dispensing your specialty medications there, but your generic medications, people will be able to pick up their medications at the clinic, just take them home with them. That saves people who have kids in the car. You know, they don't want to go to the doctor. I mean, they don't want to go to the pharmacy. There's a long line. They end up not taking their meds. Trying to make it as convenient as possible. So that way, again, it's a long-term, like he's asking, is it a one-year deal? You would hope not. You're hoping it's a long-term opportunity that you're getting people healthier, and the growth of the clinic will be a huge piece in the long-term success of that as well.
So my second part of the question is that we're going to be confronted in November or December with multiple requests for more money, a static amount of money coming in, pretty much.
the truth is, because of, again, we agree with this when I make the statement. We agreed to increase raises of 5% for police and fire. Our other employees did not get that amount. Because I agree with you. So what I'm sharing with you, when you add police and fire raises plus what we're going to see in health insurance, we're not going to have a whole lot of money.
And that's my point. My point to you is that I think you're not pushing it hard enough. I think you're going to have to start saying that for us to maintain and do our fiduciary responsibilities, police, fire, but taking care of roads and parks and everything else, one of the areas that you're not going to be able to tell people is that you've got carte blanche to do everything you want to do when you want to do and with whom you want to do it with. So if we go with this, I would encourage you to start trying to figure out a way to say to people, I'm sorry, but this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to provide quality care with quality physicians and quality institutions, but that's our goal, not that you can do what you want to do. My third point, to going what Antoine was saying, most of the plans that I read about, you have good years and bad years, but the way you end up long-term successful is that you take the money from a good year and you don't put it back in the general fund. You sequester it to take care of the next year to make sure that you have that cushion to move forward, because the reinsurance is the real killer in this. Mm-hmm. I mean, all it takes is for us to go self-funded and then to have a bad year and spend a lot of our reinsurance, which then means we're going to raise, they're going to come back and say the next year, by the way, you've now used 120%, which you need to explain to people what 120% over means. But if we're that far over claims, then it's not going to be Aetna or Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield that comes back and says we're going to raise the rate. It's the reinsurance company that's going to do it. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same amount of money we're putting out. So in your plan, I would encourage you to figure out with Tom some way to be able to sequester the money so we can't legally, Tom, in that right, ban one board to do something for a year, but figure out some way to put the money someplace where we have it. And that, because you are offering one area where we can provide good care and have some discretionary money left to do other things with. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess we'll take, because we got time, Chief Hubbard. Oh, Tom, go.
Well, mine is actually along the lines of Dr. Compuris and Director Phillips. And it's asked from ignorance, so I need help. The one thing that was said is that it will probably be the spring before we start getting good data on what's going on, which I interpret to mean for everybody that has to take 1,000 milligrams of metformin twice a day, you won't know how many that is. Metformin may not be all that expensive, but you won't know that until then. The second thing is whether it's a good year, whether it's a bad year, there's a political aspect of being a government and not really being able to raise rates that comes into play. Director Hines made a comment and you talked about 3 to 5 years. What I'm thinking is, my question is 3 years really enough to say for the board, if it sets this up as self-insurance, this is our target? Now, the board can't do deficit spending. So if we've got $1 million in health insurance savings and $900,000 owed on a fire truck, we're going to have to pay for the fire truck. But absent that, is 3 years enough to be able to get a good database to try to figure out what happens? A few years ago, we had like 5 or 6 people that actually spent 80% of what was our expenditures were on insurance. A couple of premature babies, a heart transplant, and 5 we could absorb, 10 we might not, 15 we cannot. But is 3 years a good time frame? And I can't bind a future board in how I write this, but I can do what you did with your bonds and basically write the plan with their help that you're not going to touch it unless. And that makes it a moral commitment that the board has been able to live up with. So my question is 3 years enough? And and if the answer is yes, can y'all talk to me and help me figure out how to say, don't touch this until we know what we got?
So just say yes.
Charles is good at that.
Yeah, yes, I get in trouble for that a lot. But as I told Director Phillips, I feel like 3 years is a pretty good snapshot based on the employee count that you all have. What we see some of our other self-funded public sector clients doing is they just fund that to the max possible amount, which, Tom, I believe this year will probably come out to be about what premium would be, again, on fully insured. So if we just take that money and then leave it in that account that pays our claims, then I'll let you guys kind of figure out how to word that. But as long as you're max funding that, then all those dollars are going in there, and whatever's left over, then maybe you just have that left to pay any run-out claim or anything like that. And if nothing gets paid, then that's how you start to build that reserve.
And just work with Sheridan to get that blurb, because I'm sure Tom will need that to put in ordinance. Well, thank
One other thing too is we will come monthly and let you know how we're doing. So that's different than just coming in once a year and saying, hey, you're going to get a 10% rate increase. We can come in monthly and say, this is how many claims we've paid.
We'll probably do quarterly.
Then we can do quarterly. But as much as you want, we'll be able to provide that data to make sure we're all heading in the right direction.
Thank you. Also, while we're here, as we're talking about the new year, one of the things, a part of the management policy, we're going to be instituting paid maternal leave. It does not have a true net cost to the budget, but just want to make sure as we're getting ready to prepare, it's something that we'll be a leader in the state from a city perspective, but we're seeing a lot of organizations already going towards that, and just want to make sure you all are aware of that too. Paid maternal leave. It's essentially, yeah. But we want to make sure you all are aware that if you have any questions, please direct those to Sheridan. But I think some of our police and fire will love that as well. Paternal, not maternal. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So, board members, when you get the numbers, understand what's closing our gap of funding. That's health insurance and raises for police and fire. It's gonna be crazy. All right, we're now at the agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Mayor,
I'm sorry,
you did
Chief
let the
Hubbard.
board members know, because of this presentation, we'll have modification to the, agenda next week.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, Chief. So board, am I hearing a consensus? Everyone's okay with self-funded? Make sure I see nods from everybody. We normally take care of health insurance before the budget, yes. And so Director Capris, what I would encourage is we'll schedule a meeting with Sheridan and them. Yeah. So. Come on, Nick.
So you would be voting on approving a contract with a TPA and stop loss insurance. And as part of the budget, we would include a self-insurance fund in the budget that you would approve. And that's how most public sector organizations do it. They have an
Director
internal.
Capris, so you hear what he's saying? Well, I thought you needed, yeah. So repeat that, Nick.
So what would come before the board would be the contract with the TPA, and for stop loss coverage is what would be brought before the board. We would include as part of the budget for 2026 a self-insurance fund that would be approved by the board as part of the budget process. That fund would retain all premiums that the city pays, employees pay, that would help balance out those good and bad years because you need to build up that reserve. As part of the budget process, we also would come forward with a policy change to our reserve policy to manage the reserves and a self-insurance fund to make sure that we're ensuring that we have sufficient resources within that fund to prevent those bad years from having a huge impact on the general fund. No, that'd be part of the, yes.
But, yeah, and also to be clear, we would not be selecting the TPA next week. We'll be selecting the process to have I don't think we've selected the TPA yet. Yeah.
Actually, we will be. It is.
You'll have it before it comes, yes.
Yes, we will have, the RFP has already gone out. We've gotten back the responses, and we have been evaluating those over the past several weeks. So we will come back with a recommendation of a TPA and a reinsurer. Like I said, we've already got an indication on what the renewal would be, and it's pretty firm at a little over 10%. I don't think it's going to go down from there. So yes, we will be coming back. We will have actual numbers to attach to those contracts.
Right, yes. That being said, you corrected it, so thank you.
Okay.
It's going to probably, essentially what the team needs is guidance so they can go forward with the RFQ process to select a vendor. I mean, the vendors know, and then the numbers will shake out where the numbers shake out. And the question again is, do we want to go to self-funded or not? That's really the question, Director Capris. Based on, this board says we had the meeting in September, so a key thing to really get you more numbers is having this decision. But we'll get the people talk with you as well. All right, thank you. Oh, Director Capris, and I'll come to you, Director Adcock. I got you. We're still on health insurance.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to slow the process, but there are a lot of parts of this that I want to know about before I say that I want to do it and commit the board to doing it. And I'll talk to,
And that's fine with me. I just want,
Yeah,
I'm staying on the schedule. You all said you wanted everything earlier, so.
And I texted John Starling and said I want to talk to him.
Yeah.
So he'll call me tomorrow.
All right, Director Adcock.
Yes, on this on-site clinic, would that be on-site here at City Hall in one of our buildings? Or what would be the in-site clinic, and would that take care of the families as well as the employees?
It'll be at a city facility. I think we're looking at either 12th Street in the old UMS location. Yeah, it's going to be at 12th Street, the old UMS location, because we felt like that was center of the city. There was some thought for it to be at the Fire Academy, but with the feedback we kind of got from employees, something close to the center of the city, and also kind of close to the.
Yes, ma'am. It would cover employees' dependents as well.
Okay, and would it have a doctor employed by the city on site, or
It would have a doctor on site. We estimate we'd have 2 PAs that would be there. They wouldn't be employees of the city. We would be using a company that actually employed those doctors. We're not in the business of, licensing physicians or anything like that, but we would hire them to vet all those doctors to staff the clinic, is how that would work.
And what is the cost of setting up that clinic?
Well, it ranges. Right now, the estimate that we have is anywhere from $215 to $250 a square foot. So depending on, and the space that we're looking at is from 2,000 to 2,500 square feet.
Give me just a figure.
It's roughly going to be about $600,000.
Okay. And that would be for employees and their dependents.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, any more questions on the consent agenda?
I've got one.
All right, Carrie.
Item number 4,
Yes, ma'am, what's your question?
who do you want to add to this list? And I would like to see a copy of this list, and I'm sure the other board members would also. And what are the requirements to be on this list?
Yes,
So this is adding 4 more cooperatives. 2 of them are TechShare, Lions for Innovation are the top 2, and then we have CoreWeave and one other one, or CoreTech. There's no requirements. We just have to know of them, and we're more than happy to add them to the list if they're a cooperative that we're able to join under, whether it's our laws or the laws of where the organizations exist. So a lot of states have cooperatives that they offer, but they don't necessarily let other jurisdictions from other states join. So we're happy to join any cooperative that we can to be a part of those cooperatives. And as far as vendors go, they have to work they work directly with the cooperatives to get on their list when they put out bids and respond to those bids. And oftentimes they'll say, these are all the ones that responded, and they'll let you purchase from those vendors that respond to those bids. And so we're happy to, if suppliers from Little Rock want our assistance to help them get in communication with these cooperatives, we're more than happy to facilitate those conversations.
Okay, and how many businesses is on that list?
So it's going to depend on, so this would bring our cooperative total to about 21. So these cooperatives are across the country. So there's thousands of businesses across the U.S. that are a part of cooperatives.
Okay, and how many are local?
It's going to vary from each different cooperative. So we have like the state of Arkansas's cooperative that we can purchase off of, which typically are going to be more local. And some of these other ones are Texas-based. And so they're not necessarily local, but they're closer. It's just going to depend on what the cooperative is and vendors that have submitted responses to these cooperatives that are especially the national ones.
So most of these are national companies and not our local companies?
It could be a combination of both.
Yeah, Director Adcock, many of the local companies that you know of today, as they're trying to get business, not only here in the state of Arkansas, but across the state, they join these cooperatives. Honestly, it makes it easier on the procurement team because they're already vetted. They go through the process that we normally go through, the RFQ, RFP processes, so it makes things a lot quicker. And so essentially, it's just they're bidding the price, and then we can select someone based off the price. So take, for instance, when you look at anytime we do many different things with our LRPD technology, there are folks who are on what they call a TIPS cooperative. And they just join that, and then PD will say, hey, I need X amount of cameras to do this, and they'll get someone from the TIPS cooperative. They don't have to go through all the RFQ process, so it cuts down the time, and so they're able to get through legal and bring it straight to you. Tom has to approve all of this before it even gets to you all, and then once they select someone, they come to you all for the final vote on the expenditure. It just makes everything easier.
I understand that, but I also hear from some of these businesses that says, we sure would like to do business with the city, but how do we do it and everything? So I would like for us to make sure that we're always being very concerned about doing business with the people here in our city.
So have them call me because we're happy to have those conversations. One of the cooperatives that we're trying to add here long-term, the vision on that one is they're trying to build a cooperative, and they want to get to a place where if the city does leads a bid, other jurisdictions from across the country that are part of that cooperative could use our bids, which would potentially generate business for local vendors. Additionally, what I want to tee up just a little bit for you is, as you're thinking about the local, and I know you've brought this up before, Director Adcock, as we're considering these things, one, state law factoring that in, but also we have a disparity study that's wrapping up, and that'll be part of the discussion as far as recommendations, but that would be a direction and policy set from the board as far as that, looking at that local or hyper-local level as far as businesses go. And so obviously it'd have to comply with state law, which is looking at Tom for. But those are things to consider and factor in as we look at wrapping up this disparity study that we started, 18 months ago, something like that, as far as a recommendation and looking at a policy level decision as far as the local vendor usage.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hines?
My questions are on the separate items, Mr. Mayor.
Any more questions on consent agenda before I go to Director Hines? Vice Mayor Wyatt?
We have 3 modifications, and I'd like to move M1 and M2 to the resolutions, but I'd like a report on M3.
Sure thing, we'll move M1 and M2 to the resolutions on the consent agenda.
And then a report on M3.
All right.
It's right away for the parks, I think.
Good evening. M3 is related to the Rose Creek Trail project. We received a CPRG grant from MetroPlan a couple of months ago. If you recall, the board approved us, to accept those $1.2 million in funding for that project. $300,000 is our contributing match for that project. So this resolution is just to allow us to start looking at right-of-way and easement acquisitions for that project.
I'd move that we move that to the consent also.
We'll get that moved.
Thank
All
you.
right, Director Hines?
So, Tom, on 1516,
Not to interrupt Mayor Hines, but I had a question about number 12.
All right.
I'll yield.
All right, Director. All right, Director Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Brad. Can I get a little bit of understanding? We didn't have a board communication with number 12, so can you give me a little understanding of the history of this appeal?
Sure, yes, sir, I can. This is an appeal. It was approved by the Planning Commission. The planning voted 9 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent. This is for this is an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the conditional use permit to allow a mental health and therapeutic community facility on an O3 zone property at 9621 Tall Timber Boulevard. That is in Ward 7. It'll have about 16 individuals, 8 staff members. This was brought by one of the registered objectors, so someone that spoke out against it is the one that's bringing forth the appeal. Staff recommended approval of this item during planning, and we still recommend approval.
Okay. And I guess I can talk to the objector, but in your understanding, what's the objection?
I think the objection is they feel that there is already a facility that is very similar, that is basically right next to it, right behind it. So the neighborhood feels that there's an overabundance of these facilities in their neighborhood.
Okay. And I think I see Ms. White. Yeah, okay. I'll talk to her after the meeting.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I understood the big picture.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Brad. That's all I had, Mayor.
All right, Director Hines?
Mayor,
Thank
can I,
He
Tag
has
on
to,
that.
it's actually up to him. He has to yield his time because he's next.
okay, I just wanted to tag on to,
Director Hines?
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask that number 12 be held separate. I think there'll be a lot of people here that will want to discuss it at the meeting.
This is to set the public hearing.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, Director Hines?
Are we sure?
You've been mighty not, hey, you've been yielding your time, not me.
Tom, on 15, 16, and 17, these are our franchise agreements, correct?
Yes.
So in these franchise agreements, we define these utilities for the fee, they can operate within the right of ways, that type of stuff.
Right.
So on a specific one where energy is concerned, I brought it to our local customer service manager's attention that one of their tree services has used a defoliant, probably glyphosate, to just poison trees and stuff and not trim them and cut them to the ground. It's pretty unsightly. He kind of said that was common practice. I knew it as common practice to, do that where they're in more remote areas where they're harder to access. They're doing this a lot on Canis. They did it over behind, over by Fada Rose and Riverdale. I've seen it all across the city. Not, and on one hand, on Canis, they poisoned it, and when you turn up Gamble Road, they cut it to the ground. And it's not just weeds and tall grass. These are trees and stuff that could have been cut down to preserve their right. Anyway, my question is, can we dictate how they operate with its concern with that in our franchise agreement with them?
Director Hines, I think that we can. What I emphasize think because I need to see what the PSC has said.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's
But
basically.
what you're saying is cut it down, don't poison it.
Right, because it's just leaving an unsightly mess. And most of their right-of-way crews, they either top the trees out or cut them down, and it looks, and I didn't like the answer I got from Jay on it. I kind of got the party line, and maybe we just need to get their attention on how they behave inside the city limits of Little Rock. So I'd like to further that. The other question I have is on 16, where it talks about telecommunications. The other thing I've noticed is on all our above-ground utilities, that not necessarily the power lines, but these fiber optic networks that are 4 and 5 deep on the line are not well maintained, and I think our public works staff probably has trouble tracking down which ones exactly they are. Does this franchise agreement cover all of those, whether it's fiber optic outside of AT&T and Comcast? Because these are other entities. I don't think we have an issue with AT&T or Comcast maintaining their facilities on these poles.
In terms of 15, first off, you can't have fiber optics anywhere in the right-of-way without us knowing where it is, and they're supposed to show that. And Public Works is supposed to have that data someplace.
I'm talking about not in the ground. I'm talking about on
poles.
Above ground on poles.
On poles is governed by federal law.
Well, don't they have standards of which they've got to maintain?
Federal government and state government have pretty much
I continue to see unsightly, unkempt stuff where they're down, where if a truck or a vehicle ran under them. I'm just wondering does this number 16, this telecommunications service franchise cover that? Are those entities are those fiber optic companies under, and it could be Verizon, there's a multitude of them. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because we get one chance a year with franchise agreements to make changes, and I've just seen some things that if they go unchecked, we're going to keep getting bad behavior, and I'd like to figure that out before we pass something like this.
Not having read the regulations recently.
Okay.
We had no authority over them before because the federal government preempted us, saying that any local regulation was a barrier to competition, and then the state government totally wiped us out of being able to do pretty much of anything. So I think the answer to your question is no, but I haven't read the regulations recently. I would do that. However, I do want to let the board know we had a pretty detailed criminal investigation recently. We asked for some tower information pursuant to a warrant that was issued by a circuit judge. I think 8 companies responded to us. Only one company charges the fee. It's not currently in there, but if you want, we will add the language that say part of your franchise is you won't charge us a fee for doing the searches for the police pursuant to warrant.
I think that's probably a good idea at this point. Since we get one opportunity a year to make these changes, I just knew it was coming up, and like I said, maybe we can reach out to Mr. Hartman or somebody higher up at Energy to get their attention on this, and I got pictures and proof positive. It just seems pretty lackadaisical, and one of their vendors getting away on the cheap of doing this versus, actually maintaining their right of way.
If you'll send me and Chief Hubbard, we'll visit with leadership.
Gotcha.
And with those photos too. All right. Director Webb?
Thank you, Mayor, and it's on 21 if nobody has anything else before that. And I just have a couple of questions for Brad.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, this is just for my information because I don't know about this process.
Sure.
Why does an appeal from an administrative decision come to the board and not go to planning? And
That's
that's not a loaded question.
That's a really good question. That we asked ourselves that too, but in our ordinance, Municipal Code, Chapter 30, Section 30-30, has appeals that we would make in this chapter be heard by the Board of Directors. It actually states, any interested person aggrieved by a decision of any administrative official of the Department of Planning and Development in administering the provisions of this article may appeal to the Board of Directors. So in these cases, what you would think would go to the BOA this variance comes to the Board of Directors.
Okay, okay, that's one question, and then, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the second thing, why was the driveway denied?
It is, our standard is 32 feet maximum, and they are requesting, I believe it is 52 feet wide. So it is something that we can't, at a staff level, approve. So the denial was, it's 32 max. If you want something more than that, you have to seek a variance that would come from this body.
Okay, and then last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would a 52-foot driveway preclude the property from being able to comply with the tree ordinance?
I could see in certain circumstances it may, but in this case, I do not think that, I think that it's not germane to that, but it could.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, any questions before we adjourn? Any questions before we adjourn? Going once, going twice? Director Miller, oh, I thought you were. Meeting adjourned.